Hi, my name is Andrea Goyen, and I am the Environmental Literacy and Sustainability Coordinator at the San Mateo County Office of Education. In this video, I'm going to provide a sample of how you can do an introduction to global warming and climate change with students. And students in this case, I recommend is upper elementary, secondary students, or adult students. So I'm going to share my screen and walk you through it and also point you to where you can find some of the resources. So here's the video and slide deck are an example of how you could do this, and you'll find the resources here using the tinyURL website down below. So I think it's really important to start off by helping students understand that we are really facing two human crises. And the first crisis is ecological overshoot. The second one is global warming. And so helping students kind of navigate that and really think through that ecological overshoot is the thing that started first, and global warming is the thing that started second. Sometimes I use this infographic to show that. So human impact and ecological overshoot is really this idea of habitat destruction and ecosystem degradation. So you've got natural resource depletion, built landscape, and pollution all contributing to that. Now, climate change serves as the greatest symptom of all of these things. And so I think showing that there's two different crises and that we really need to tackle both of them, I think is important. So let's get into the climate change fundamentals. When introducing climate change to students, it's really good to start with the idea that the Earth's climate is changing and getting warmer in large part to humans adding heat trapping greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. So starting with that basic understanding of the greenhouse gas effect. And I actually think this image is really useful because it's a side-by-side image showing on the left the natural greenhouse gas effect, and on the right, greenhouse effect intensified by humans. So in this situation, you're showing students that on the left side, we want some of this. We want some of these gases to be trapped so that we can have some heat. But on the right side, we're having too many. With younger students, it's useful to sometimes show this as an analogy of like the Earth having too many blankets on it, and it's just getting too hot, and it's saying no more blankets. Another important thing for students to understand is the sources of greenhouse gas emissions. So starting with a basic chart that can show them what are the greenhouse gases. So showing that there's a couple different types, right? You've got fluorinated gases, nitrous oxide, methane, carbon dioxide, a few others as well, but these are the biggest ones. And then showing some of the contributing sources. This is not everything. This is a very simplified graph. So I think it's or simplified model, but it's important to let students get an understanding of the basics, but letting them know that there is more to this picture, but this is still a good starting point. Then walking students through data. So really helping them understand the basics of how CO2 levels today are higher than levels recorded in the past 800,000 years. So yes, there has been fluctuation. It's really important they do understand that ups and downs of the fluctuation, but it's really clear when you get up here to the right edge of the graph that this is far beyond the normal fluctuation. Also showing that connection to temperature. So showing the average temperature of the air and water around the world rising, and helping them really understand that here we've got the zero line being average temperatures, and that anything below is showing what was below the average. Anything above is showing what is above the average. So you can get a real clear sense that it's definitely rising. I also think images like this are really helpful to drive that home. So thinking about showing them from 1850 all the way up through 2020, what has really been going on with the global mean temperature. And then another image that can be really useful is just that time lapse. So there's a lot of different ways to show and get at the same concept for students and just reinforcing the basics. The last thing is really important for introducing climate change is to show the impacts of climate change. So giving students just a basic document or a basic picture that will walk them through some of those problems and have them share their own personal experiences with some of them. What do they know about them? What have they heard? What have they seen on the news? You can even use this as an extension into current events. Either way, just sort of ending the basics with the fact that there are impacts of climate change, and there's impacts that are going to affect humans and impacts that are affecting all other living creatures. So something that you can have students do right away at the end of an introduction like this is to dive into a web quest. So a web quest, pretty simple tool. A web quest will take students through looking at some of the resources that will reinforce the learning that you introduce them to. So Environmental Protection Agency has some great resources here. NASA has some really fantastic introductory resources for kids and adult learners. And then there's a couple other here that I would highly recommend. So the first part of this web quest is just focus on just this basic understanding of global warming. There are other parts to this web quest which are introduced in other videos. One other thing that I wanted to show in this is that ending a lesson around climate change, with some reflection is important. So pausing, reflecting, asking students to say, how would you explain global warming to someone else? What questions do you have? And what are some of the emotions that they're experiencing as they learn the basics of climate change? The emotions will intensify as you go deeper into other types of activities, like the going deeper into the impacts and the indicators, or going into climate action or climate adaptation. And I highly recommend taking students through some trauma-informed practices after an introduction to climate change. So doing things that helps them feel connected to nature. And research shows that spending time doing activities that connect human with nature is positive for physical, mental, and academic outcomes. So there's really no losing when you connect them here with nature. So we really want to give that as an opportunity. And if you click on the resource or use the web link that was shared below, you can see there's a bunch of different activities that students could do to just give them like a calming time to really think about those reflections on climate change. So that's it for the overall introduction. You can find those resources at tinyurl.com/smcoe-climate-ed.